Okay, today we're going to look at tenses. So I'll put that up on the board. Tenses in English are very hard. There's nothing easy about them whatsoever. Let's just look at present tense to begin with. Seems like a good place to start, yeah? What's happening now? Now, for those of you that don't know, every tense, what I mean is present, past and future, when I say tense, every tense has 4 aspects, not 5, but 4 aspects. So present tense, you could say I do, which would be present simple. We call that one present simple. Perhaps I'll write that here, present simple. And generally speaking, present simple is used for repeated regular actions. However, I'm going to give you some more information about this because it's not only repeated and regular actions, but that does define a lot of the use of present simple. It will be I do, and by the way, for he and she, it would be he or she does. He or she does. Don't forget that, that's still present simple. And of course, I play, he or she plays. They would still be present simple as well. And so, generally speaking, we say that we use present simple for regular or repeated actions. And that means that certain words, like every day, every week, every month, every year, they will always be present simple. Every week, every day, every month, every year, or on Saturdays. Yeah, that means that it happens every Saturday, and so on Saturdays would certainly be present simple. I play football on Mondays. I personally play football on Mondays, but I'm missing it tonight because I am injured. I've hurt my ankle, unfortunately. So remember that present simple is for repeated or regular actions, but there are 3 other aspects in present tense. There's the simple aspect, this one. There's the continuous aspect, which looks like I am doing. Wait, whoopsie daisy. I am doing. Or he or she is doing. Yeah, he is doing. They are doing. They are playing. Okay, I hope it's all clear so far. And we call this one, terrible spelling. We call this one the continuous form. Or it's also known as present progressive. And I do mean present here because we haven't got on to past yet. But this is the continuous form. And in my opinion, the best way to understand this one is in the middle of. It's when you're in the middle of a present action. However, this isn't actually always true. I'm not sure that you've been taught this before, but there are some verbs in English which are called performatives. And performatives are very important because they're always used in the simple form and not in the continuous form, even though you are technically in the middle of the action. A performative verb is a verb which you perform at the same moment as you speak it. For example, when you say, I promise to do my homework, let's say, yeah? I promise to do my homework. You never ever say, I am promising to do my homework. You just say, I promise to do my homework, even though technically you're in the middle of making that promise. And so a lot of students might say, well, hang on, surely I should say I am promising. And I totally understand your logic. But because promise is a performative verb, a verb which you perform at the same moment as you utter it, you need to use present simple. And there are other performatives as well, not just promise. So when you say, I refuse to help you, by making that statement, you are refusing to help them. You are performing the verb while doing it. So you don't say, I am refusing to help you. You just say, I refuse to help you. And many other verbs are actually performatives. When you are getting married, you say, I do. And by pronouncing that I do, you're actually performing the action. And so I do, when you're getting married, would be a performative verb. When the priest says, I hereby pronounce you man and wife, I hereby pronounce you. Here, pronounce is being used in a performative sense. And any verb actually where you say I hereby and then the verb, it's going to be a performative verb. So the first complication to remember is that performatives are always going to be used in a simple tense and not in the continuous tense, even though you're in the middle of doing it. But in other situations where you're in the middle of something, then you use present continuous. So I would definitely say I am teaching you English, you are learning about tenses. We use the continuous forms because you're in the middle of learning about tenses. I'm in the middle of teaching you different things about the tenses, different things about the aspects. So number one is remember performatives. Number two, stative verbs. Stative verbs are verbs which are never used in continuous tenses, and that includes perfect continuous aspect, which we'll look at as the fourth different aspect of present tense. But stative verbs are verbs like know, understand, believe, like, love, hate. They very often describe a state of mind. And when they're describing a state of mind, it means you cannot use that verb in a continuous tense. So please remember stative verbs as well, because that will really help you choosing when you choose the aspect. If you know that the verb is stative, very often you just use present simple. But you might use present perfect simple as well, which is going to be the next tense here. You'll never use present perfect continuous with a stative verb. I've got two other videos on stative verbs. Some verbs are stative in one meaning and dynamic in the other meaning. So it's probably worth watching that lesson about stative verbs for more information. And trust me, so many times when a student doesn't know why it's not continuous, lots of times it's because the verb is either a performative or a stative verb. So it's really worth learning about stative verbs and performative verbs if you want to get your tenses always correct. Okay, so we've got present simple, present continuous. We've also got present perfect. Sorry, I'm just looking for a cloth. Let me grab a cloth so that I can take this off. So we've also got present perfect, which is I have done, or he has done, if we want to look at it as he has done. It's basically the third form here, the past participle, which we must use here, not the ing form like in present continuous, the participle, the present participle, but we need to use the past participle here, also known as the third form of the verb. Now we use present perfect, this is its name, present perfect, simple. If you want the whole name, it's actually present perfect simple. It's not simple on its own, it's perfect simple. And the best way to understand this particular tense, in fact all aspects are well understood if you think about signal words. So every day, every week, every month, on Saturdays, that's a signal that you've got to use present simple. If you say now, at the moment, that's a signal that you've got to use present continuous, yeah? Now or at the moment. Well, unless it's a stative verb or a performative. But if it's not a stative verb and it's not a performative and you say now or at the moment, you're probably going to need present continuous. Now, present perfect simple, usually they teach this in schools abroad very well because they teach you about signal words. They teach you about already, yet, just, ever, never, for, since. Yeah, there are quite a few words which are most of the time present perfect, but not all the time. They're always present perfect if they refer to an unfinished period, and that's the point. Present perfect is an unfinished period. It's when you're referring to all of your life That's one possibility, that you're referring to all of your life. So we don't say I saw this film twice unless you give a specified period. Usually you're talking about your whole life when you mean that you saw this film twice. And so usually you say I have seen this film twice. And when you say have seen, it makes it really clear to the person who's listening to you that you're referring to all your life up until the present moment, continuing into the future. And that's why you really ought to use present perfect and not past simple. The only time you would use past simple is if you refer to a finished period, in which case you say, I saw that film twice while I was on holiday, or I saw that film twice last year. Then you would use past simple, certainly. But for unfinished present moment, you would say, I have seen that film twice, and it means all my life up until the moment now. So the point about present perfect is that it's an unfinished period, which started long ago and still continues now. But we also use this present perfect for things which happened in the past and which have a present result. And that makes sense because, again, it's an unfinished period. It's something which started in the past and is still true now. So if you are holding your homework and you want to show it to the teacher, you might say, look, teacher, I have done my homework. Here it is. I have done it. And I have done it because it's something that was true in the past, but the result is here in the present. And this is worth remembering because there are many different situations where this might be the case. You might look outside and you can't see your car and you say, oh no, I can't see my car. It must have been stolen. Now, must have been stolen is actually a past modal in the perfect tense. And it's very much related to present perfect simple. When you say it must have been stolen, it happened in the past, but it's got a present result. It's not there, you can't see it. So you can say it must have been stolen, or you can say my car has been stolen. You can say it like that too. Obviously slightly different meanings then, because must have been stolen means you're certain that that's probably what has happened to it. It's more than likely. But when you say it has been stolen, then you're saying that it's a fact. It has been stolen. Someone has taken it. So please remember that it's also used for present results, something that happened in the past but has a present result. So yeah, two things to remember there: unfinished period and also present result. But yeah, unfinished period is perhaps one of the most important points. You only use past simple if it's a finished period, but if it's an unfinished period, for example, I have lived in this town all my life. That's an unfinished period. Okay, so there is one more perfect tense, and it's perfect continuous. I have been doing. Or he or she has been doing. And there's a lot of confusion with this tense. So I hope I can clear up the confusion. Firstly, this last aspect is certainly rarer than any of the other three aspects. I think that all the other three aspects are actually fairly common, but this one is rare. It's not all the time that you need to use this tense. So that's good news, yeah? You don't have to use it all the time. But you do use it, especially for when you're answering the question, how long? Yeah, you use present perfect very often for how many times, by the way, because then you refer to all your life. But you refer to present perfect continuous when you talk about how long, and it's an unfinished period, and it's not a stative verb. Yeah, if it's a stative verb like know, you will never say I have been knowing him all my life. You will never say that. It's completely wrong. And it's because know is a stative verb. It's a state of mind. You must say I have known him since I was a boy. Okay? Never use know in continuous or any other stative verb. But generally speaking, when you answer the question how long with any other verb, you're going to use present perfect continuous. So you say, I have been living in this town all my life. Now, live and work, they're two exceptions. They can be used as stative verbs or dynamic verbs. And so good news, you could use live here or here. You can say, I have lived here all my life, or I have been living here all my life. You can say, I've worked at this company for 3 weeks, or you can say, I've been working at this company for 3 weeks. And there's no difference in meaning, really. So if the verb is stative and dynamic at the same time, feel is another good example. You can say, I've felt this for a while, or I've been feeling this for a while. Both are possible. But yeah, a word like learn, which is very dynamic, it's not a stative verb, or study, you can say, I have been studying English, not I have studied. I've been studying English since I was 8 years old. I've been learning a foreign language for 10 years. So when you say how long, this is when you use this one, especially if you want to emphasize that it was a long time. That's when you use this one. There aren't really any other situations when you need it, so it's not very common. Another important point is that there's a passive form here, there's a passive form here, there's a passive form here, but there is no passive form for perfect continuous. Okay, it doesn't exist. There is no passive form for perfect continuous. So that's something else that's worth noting. Now, I hope that makes it clear, most of those 4 tenses. You should be able to get a lot of questions right for these kind of tense questions on these tense exercises just by remembering those details there about how to use these tenses, and certainly by remembering performatives and stative verbs. They will help. They really do help. Remember that statives and performatives cannot be used here, and they cannot be used here. They can only be used here or here. Okay? So there were some questions that I just saw crop up. What's the difference between for and since? Well, that's very easy for me to say, so I'll quickly answer that. I think I'm still on the board here, yeah. Since is plus point in time. I have been learning it since I was a boy. I have been learning it since Wednesday. I have been learning it since 3:30. For is plus a period of time. I have been learning it for 3 weeks. I have been learning it for 10 months. I have been learning it for 5 years. Yeah, can you see how this is 10 months, 5 years, 3 minutes? It's a period of time. Since is plus a point in time. It's since that moment, since 3:30, since Monday, since January, since 1999. Okay, so they're very, very different, for and since. But yes, both of them are very often used in present perfect. The only time when you don't need them for present perfect is when the period has finished. If the period has finished, it's not still going on now. So if you're talking about last year, you didn't see your friend for 3 weeks last year in the summer, then definitely use past simple. Yes, that's correct. Of course it's correct. I have been learning it since 2012. 2012 is a point in time, not a number of years. It's a point in time. So yes, it's certainly correct. So that's all I've got for you with the present tenses. But the good news is, if you understand the difference between these 4 aspects, they work exactly the same for the past tenses and exactly the same for the future tenses. Even though you may study these separately, if you learn these aspects at the same time for the past, the present and the future, I think that that's very helpful, because actually it's exactly the same for the past tenses. So in English, you can tell someone a story using all the past tenses, or you can tell someone a story using all the present tenses. What doesn't sound good is when you jump from past to present, from past to present. That doesn't sound good. So during my classes, I ask students very often, mostly every lesson if possible, if they're good students and they've done their homework, I ask them to retell a TV show or a book which they've read or which they've watched. And while they're retelling these TV shows or books or whatever, I tell them to either use all 4 past tenses or all 4 present tenses. And I don't like it when they mix them up. It doesn't sound good. Either use all four past tenses or all four present tenses, because yes, you can tell a story, even one which happened yesterday, in the present tense. That might sound strange, but I know it's possible in a lot of other languages as well. And so it's, take my word for it, it's not strange. You can say, yesterday a man comes up to me and he walks across the street and he gives me his mobile phone and he asks me to call his friend. All of that's fine. You're using present tense to describe something. It kind of puts the listener right in the middle of the story, and so it's done for effect. And yeah, sure, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But yeah, all of these four present tenses, when we report something, when we put it into past speech and say he said, he told me, all of these four present tenses turn into the equivalent past tenses. So I had a question from a student today, see if I can remember exactly what it was, from Nina, and she was confused about the verb need, but there was no need to be confused because it was actually quite logical what we would do here. If you say something like, I think it was something like, I can't remember exactly what sentence it was, but if you say something like, he needs to hand in, this is a different sentence than what Nina gave me, but I'm keeping the principle the same. He needs to hand in the homework he has done. Now, how do we put that whole sentence into reported speech? How do we say that, say something like this, Dave said, or Dave told me, remember the difference between say and tell, otherwise it sounds really bad, you make that mistake all the time. Dave told me, let's put it in reported, so we won't make it direct speech, we'll make it indirect speech. Dave told me that, whoopsie daisy, that he, now what do we do with present simple when we put it into reported speech? We just put it back a tense, yeah? Present simple becomes past simple. So Dave told me that he needed, blah, 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 blah. He needed to hand in the homework that he, now what do we do with has done when we report it? Hopefully you're all with me and you can all see that all we need to do is change has to had, because had done is the past perfect form. Had done is past perfect. Now this makes total sense because still we have, what happened in this sentence? What was the order of events? Firstly, the person, the subject, he, did the homework, and secondly, he needed to hand it in. And so, has done turns to had done. He needed is the past simple verb, and had done is before that past simple verb. So anytime you're reporting something, just put all those present tenses back to past tenses, and yeah, that's how you would use your past perfect. You change all the present perfect verbs into past perfect, and it makes total sense. Yeah, it's very, very logical, and the tense system is very logical. There are lots of other things that you need to remember, like performatives, like stative verbs, and I talk about them a lot because they are important. They've certainly helped me explain answers to exercises. As long as I've got that that knowledge in my mind, it makes it much easier to explain it. So it's well worth learning those verbs. But yeah, this is all we're doing here. We're changing present tenses to past tenses, so it's pretty simple. Okay, any questions then about anything which I've said? I could start talking about past tenses, which would be did, was doing, had done, had been doing. But really, they're the same as the present tenses. They're exactly the same. They have the same signal words, but they're just in past. So past perfect, you'll very often see already, yet, just, ever, never, for, since, in past perfect. The difference between was doing and had been doing is they are very different. It's the same as the difference between is doing and have been doing. They're different, okay? The difference is how long. How long is have been doing or had been doing? Past continuous or present continuous mean in the middle of. So they're very different, yeah? If somebody asks you, how long have you been living in this town? You'd need present perfect continuous. You'd need to say, I have been living in this town for 7 years. But if somebody asks you, what are you doing now? What are you doing at the moment? Then of course, you need to answer in present continuous, and you need to say what you're in the middle of doing. So the difference between was doing and had been doing is massive. One of them means in the middle of, and one of them is used for duration. It's used to say how long. So is anybody still feeling confused about those two tenses? Can somebody give me an example sentence of when they're confused of whether they should use was doing or had been doing? Because if you have some kind of question, I'll try to make it as clear as possible, but yes, they are very different. Past continuous means in the middle of. Past perfect continuous means how long, duration, how long something was happening for. Well, there's lots of common mistakes with the tenses. Not sure what combination tenses are, I'm afraid. I think we'll stop there then, unless you have any questions about this. This is just a kind of revision course for tenses. But please, if you have any, I'll give you one more minute just to put any questions. If you're quick at typing, try to put them up. So I've just explained the difference between past perfect and past simple. Past perfect goes before past simple. It's earlier than past simple, and that's all. That's all you need to remember. It's earlier than past simple. You've got a past simple verb. You want to go back in time before it. You need to say had done, had been, had to go before that past simple verb. So you very often see it with he told me, he said, very often, because very often he told you something that had happened earlier. So he told me that he had done his homework. Yeah, he told me that he had finished the project. He told me that he had found a new job. All sorts of expressions, especially with he told me, he said, he explained, he claimed. Okay, last chance for questions, and then we're going to stop for today. It's very hot in here today. Need to get some kind of air conditioning in this place, I think, to bring the temperature down. Yeah, I've kind of talked about present perfect progressive. Yeah, I finished or I had finished, depends on the context. Past continuous means in the middle of, with past verbs. So, I was in the middle of reading my newspaper when the doorbell rang. That's all it means, in the middle of. Anything else? Good. No? Okay, well, we'll stop there then. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions, you'll have to put them under the video now, because this is live at the moment, and I'll try and do some more live classes over the next few weeks. I should get some free time, and it will be on lots of different things, but I'd like to do some revision of old topics. I haven't actually done a tense lesson for a long time, but I have plenty of other lessons on tenses which get straight to this information. I've already mentioned it, certainly. But please try those videos. There are at least 10 videos on tenses, on past perfect, present perfect, and I look at all tenses, every single aspect in present, in past, in future. Try those videos if you have any more questions at all. Okay, thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you all soon.